What is up, beautiful people? Episode 115 with the great Stephen Hunt, great friend of mine. I had him on the podcast with his beautiful wife Angel last time, like a year ago, year and a half ago. I wanted to have him back on, hear all the differences in his business because I know it's expanded, it's changed a lot. I bet he's still getting deals the exact same way, but I've been watching some of your content and it's been cool seeing your journey. And I like doing this every once in a while where we like bring somebody back and it's like, hey, look at how much they've developed. Look at how much they've grown. And look at how much can happen in like a year and a half, right? He
Yeah.
has a beautiful new baby, which is awesome. That's like one of the big things that happened since he was last on. Daniel Quintano is watching, which is dope. Great
What's up,
friend.
Daniel?
Um, so just it's cool, man. So first off, real quick, for the people who don't know you, for the nobody who doesn't know you, just introduce yourself, introduce your business, what you mainly do, all that good stuff, and we'll just quickly start there.
Totally. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, Jonah. It's so great to be back for seconds on Skorch the Fears. So much has changed on just this channel alone. I mean, the intro alone is completely different. So much is going great in your world too. So it's awesome to be back here. But a little bit about what our businesses do. So we run multiple businesses at this point in time. We have an acquisitions business, which is our B2B marketing channels. We have our fix and flip business, which is going great. It's awesome. Love to JV in that business as well, which is so much fun because I get to collaborate with so many different investors. We have our buy and holds, which I don't really consider a business. I run it like a business, but we have our buy and holds that we still keep. And then we started a property management business about a year ago as well. And that has been going full speed ahead, just taken off. Super stressful, tons of lessons to learn there as well. But it's been a blast, man. It's been so awesome.
So we got like three main business lines. We've got fix and flipping, we've got your own personal buy and holds, and then a property management company.
Yes.
So very different than last time we talked. Last time we talked, I think you were just fix and flipping and just buy and holding. Um, what made you want to start a property management company as well? And what made you want to go down these three routes? Because I mean, there are so many different businesses you can start in real estate. You know this better than anybody else. But why those three? Why those three businesses out of any of them?
That's a really good question. So, with those three businesses, I was already in the real estate space, and I can talk a little bit about that. But with the property management side of things, when I look to go start a business, I'm always looking for businesses that have a lot of residual income. And when it came to the property management side of things, I was in this world where the rates were changing when it came to buy and holds. So much was changing in terms of the pivots that you had to make, the exit strategies you had to make, and making money on a hold became more and more difficult. However, my property manager, who was my best friend as well at the time, was still making the same amount of money every single month. So we ended up deciding, hey, let's just team up. I see a lot of areas of opportunity and things that need to be improved upon in the property management space that I would love to be able to bring to the marketplace to serve investors like myself that are looking for these types of solutions. So that was really the whole idea about going behind it is let's figure out a way that we can do something that's still involved in real estate that helps reduce my costs when it comes to the balance sheet at the end of the year, but can still be involved in real estate and also is something that is highly desirable if I want to sell it off in the future. And property management is just that. You get awesome valuations when you get to certain points in property management. So it's not just working towards this monthly check that's continuing to increase. It's the multiple of what we're going to be able to sell this business for 2, 3, 4 years down the road as well.
So why is property management have a higher multiple than like any other business? Is it because it's more consistent, or like what about property management makes it so being able to sell it at a lot higher price?
Yeah, it's that alone essentially is the consistency of it. You can predict exactly what you're going to be making when it comes to property management. Your margins aren't huge. It's not like owning a roofing business where you can go get a roofing job and make 5, 10K on that roofing job and profit. It's smaller chunks, but it's a consistent amount of chunks. And there's a contract that comes involved with that too. Most property managers, including ourselves, have a 2-year agreement that we put together. So when we're going to sell off the book of business, we already have a future of, hey, these people are locked in for 2 years working with us. So they already have an expectation of what the cash flow is going to look like and what they're going to be able to build off on top of that as well.
Totally makes sense. I like it. So awesome. So Last time we talked super long about how you got properties, right? Because it's in a super cool way. It's by like making relationships with other businesses, with hospitals, with all sorts of different people that like are much more very like all business to business. Like that's how you got all of your leads. Is that still how you get all of your leads for fix and flipping, for your buy and holds? Like, is that still the case?
For things that I take on myself, yes. So I still have that referral network actually working for me currently. I haven't been out in the field doing the business to business model in almost a year now, actually. Ever since we had our baby, I stopped going out into the field, doing that whole thing. And I love doing it. I wish I could be out there more, but building the property management business, there's only so many areas that I can really stretch myself and still helping run some of the fix and flips and all that kind of good stuff. So when those deals come through that pipeline, yes, in that case, absolutely. I am working to build that back up now. Actually, just recently we started to say, hey, let's go ahead and start launching our GAPS project. That's what we call it. It's Golden Age Property Solutions, GAPS for short. So we're starting to launch that off again. But the other fix and flips that are coming through has just been from social media and networking with other investors throughout all of Arizona and having those individuals come to work alongside with me as well. So we're doing these 50-50 JV splits where somebody brings the deal, somebody brings the funding, and then I'm bringing the experience of, hey, this is how it's going to run. This is how we're going to keep our expenses down. I've done enough of these now at this point to feel extremely confident in what I'm doing. So if you want a secure place to be able to learn how to do fix and flips, let's partner up together. So a lot of deals this past year have been coming straight from partnerships.
I love it. Let's talk about it. So, social media and networking, what does that
Mhm.
mean? What have you been doing that other people aren't doing in order to get deals from social media and from networking and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I am showcasing what I'm doing. I'm talking about what I'm doing. I'm showing the results of what I'm doing so people can actually see this tangible thing that I'm doing. And it shows that I know what I'm talking about. And if people want to get involved with me, I go, hey, yeah, absolutely. Why don't you let's go check out a couple of the projects that we have going on right now. Let's break down what the numbers look like. Let's talk about why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. So that way we can learn together and collaborate together. The other thing is that I've also just built up such a vast network of resources in that period of time from the hard money lenders, from the materials that I'm purchasing, from the crews that I'm working with. I've already done all that hard work that you have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of pain to learn about these things. So when people come in to work with me, it's a seamless process for them. And I can just plug them into straight education mode versus me trying to figure it out at the same time too. Does that make sense?
100%. No, of course it makes sense. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, they're seeing what you're doing, they see it all, so they're like, okay, let's bring him a deal, right? Um, how many deals do you feel like that brings you in every single month, would
I
you
would
say?
say now I take a lighter approach too. I could really crank up the volume on that if I truly wanted to. Again, I'm trying not to stretch myself too thin. I'm in this place now in life where I just had a baby and I'm trying to remove things off my plate. I have a really bad habit of really inundating myself and doing a little bit too much. But in this case, I'm probably doing 2 to 3 deals a month doing it this route.
Nice.
And I like it that way because I can kind of spread out the stress of, hey, having too many things going on at once between having multiple partnerships. So when I connect with one partnership, it's, hey, we're just talking about this. Next partnership, we're just talking about that. It's not as stressful as having it just all in myself too.
What do you feel like you're focusing most on? Like you on in like if you took your day, how much is the buy and hold, your own buy and holds? How much is the fix and flipping, and how much is the property management? And which one are you trying to grow the most?
Yeah.
And why?
Good question. So right now, the thing that takes the most focus from me is the property management, and that's because I know you and I've joked about this before in the past, but it's the idea that it's a real business. We have real team members that are showing up with us in the office every single day. We have a commitment to clients that we have to be able to follow through on a monthly basis. It's not one transaction and it's done. It is a consistent. How are we going to make this perform? How are we going to make sure we're getting you the results we said we were? How are we staying on top of things so that we're staying competitive in this marketplace? It's such a different approach as opposed to doing just real estate. And that's why there's more value on the back end there too. And that's why I'm putting more time into it because I can go off and sell the property management business. Going off and selling my fix and flip operation, it's highly unlikely. You don't see a lot of fix and flip operations selling off because that's a lot of that's just coming from me. And that's how it is for most fix and flippers too. I am the source of how the deals are kind of coming through for the most part because people are either bringing them to me or I'm going out direct to seller and getting them myself. So that's why I'm putting so much more effort and emphasis, I guess I should say, on the property management side of things, because it's this whole new world. We're talking about just a different set of employees, a completely different way of doing things that compared to the traditional fix and flip or buy and hold investments.
I love it. So talk to me about property management companies because like I don't know. I'm gonna play devil's advocate because I
Yeah.
don't know that much. But it always seems like, damn, a property management company, they get like 10% of the rental income. So we're talking like, let's say it's a $1,500 rental, $150 every single month. That can be really good, but that also seems really small.
Mm-hmm.
So is the whole idea is like get 1,000 of those, like then that's how we make like an insane amount of money, 100, 500, and then sell it off? Or like, what's the grand plan and how do you even grow that property management company to a place where it could be sold off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, uh, you're right. It's smaller margins, and I kind of mentioned that earlier too about it's this world of small margins. So when you get a new property onboarded, it's not like this. Oh my gosh! Like when you close a wholesale deal, you're like, dude, 20K, awesome. You're like, cool. I got
Yeah.
them in as a property management client. That's 120 bucks a month. It's not this crazy amount of money, but you start stacking them up, and yeah, you do get into that world where okay, now consistently we have 5K. Now we consistently have 10K. Now we consistently have 20K, 25, 30K, and it starts to build and build and build. And in the world of property management too, it's the idea of everything happens in volume. So the more you can continue to grow the property management business, the more business you're giving to other people. And that's what I like about it a lot. And it's reduced my costs on fix and flips as well. Like I said, I've really started to try to create this ecosystem here of what can service my other businesses as well. So I don't have a property management cost now on my fix and flip, not fix and flips, for my buy and holds. So that's great. But also vendors that I'm working with, now that we manage over 100 properties, you can assume that we're getting at least a problem for 20 properties every single month coming up. So whether the plumbing went bad or the electrical went bad or something happened, we're giving a ton of volume and a ton of work to vendors. To put it in perspective, we did $194,000 to vendors in the past 2 months. So we paid out vendors
Nice.
$194,000 in that period of time. So we get the best of the best pricing. So my cost is lower when I'm doing fix and flips. We get all these awesome incentives when we're working with them. And then on top of that, as we continue to grow that volume, they want to keep us as clients. We can start to get affiliate programs. And that's actually something that just started getting implemented now, where we're getting 10 to 15% kickbacks from the vendors as well.
I love that. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Like even more than selling it off, it's also a huge vertical for you. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even think about the fact that if you own a property management company and a fix and flip business, one of the biggest problems for flippers is keeping their guys busy. You don't have that problem ever. You could have no flips and your guys would still be insanely busy because you're
Mm-hmm.
managing properties constantly, right? Um, that's pretty damn smart. I like that a lot. So cool. I like that a lot too. And then, so you're talking about affiliate as in like when somebody needs a contractor, you affiliate them out and get 10 to 15% kickback. Is that what you mean?
Yes, kind of. It's really across the board. So we're a full service property management business, and we go truly above and beyond for the clients that we work with. So I'm talking down to, and I can go into what the name and all that kind of stuff is about the property management business, what makes it unique. But somebody can literally go buy a property and say, I got a property. Now what do I do? And we say, don't worry about it. We'll take it from here. And we'll flip the property around for them. We'll get the entire property furnished. We'll get all the photographs. Literally, they have to buy the property, bring it to us, and we will do everything else for them. So when it comes to setting up the properties, we get a kickback on that. When it comes to maintaining the properties, we get a kickback on that. When it comes to any of these aspects of it, we're getting a kickback because we're putting the extra work to make sure that they're taken care of. But also it keeps a higher standard for how we need our properties to be looking and performing. Because if we are taking on properties that are previously slumlord houses, we're not going to be maximizing rents. We're not doing the best by our clients in that situation. And we're making less money in that situation too. So if we're able to control that from start to finish, we can maximize the rents, we can maximize what people are getting, and then we can also get more kickbacks too from our vendors.
So are you just doing, when you're a property management company, you just property manage long-term rentals, right? Or do you actually do other ones? Because you said like you would furnish them. So do you do long-term furnished rentals? Or are you talking like mid-term, short-term? Like do you do other types of management other than long-term rentals?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Jonah. Yeah, so our company is called HABU Property Management, and it's an acronym, HABU. It stands for Highest and Best Use Property Management. Where did this come from? Well, it came from me getting my teeth kicked in on a few too many deals that I was holding on to because the market shifted. The interest rates went up. The values are starting to drop. We were in this situation where it's like, dude, this was supposed to cash flow $500 a month. And now I don't know what I'm going to do. How do I turn? Where do I go to? And when you go to your traditional property manager, like you just mentioned, they're typically just doing long-term rentals. It's usually long-term rentals, 10% management rate. It's kind of the standard, what you expect when you go to a property manager. Now we get to act differently. We get to act as consultants in these situations. So again, somebody can bring us the property and we go, let us run the numbers for you. We're going to see how this is going to perform as a long-term rental, a mid-term rental, a short-term rental, and a co-living house. And what's going to take the most capital investment? What's going to be the quickest turnaround? What's going to be the most consistent? What's going to have the most expenses? And we get to weigh these options with our clients and say, we feel the best route for you is going X. And this is where we think we're going to get you the highest and best use out of your property. So we get to guide the clients in those situations too. And it gives us more variance, I guess I should say, in terms of the management rate that we're getting. We stay below the standard when it comes to most management rates, long-term 8%, mid-term 10%, short-term 15%, which is quite a bit lower than most people. And then we do co-living at 12%. So we're talking right below the standards on all of those, but giving an A+ 5-star service on top of it.
Well, I love that. Are you only in Phoenix? You're probably only in Phoenix is the issue.
Only in Phoenix. Yeah, you met my business partner, Drew.
Colorado next, because I could use you in Colorado. I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, I could use you. I can't wait till you go nationwide. Because, yeah, I mean, that's what everyone needs, right? I honestly, that's one of my biggest problems is that it's like, God damn it. Like, I need property managers who can do everything, right? It's easy to find property managers who do long-term rental, but it's really hard to find property managers, good ones, that'll do short-term rental, that'll do midterm rental, that'll do, co-living spaces. That's like the most interesting one. I mean, pad split is this big thing right now, right? But pad split isn't everywhere, right? So really the only good property managers I've found in Colorado so far are long-term, and it's just super annoying. I'm like, this gives me one exit strategy. I personally hate managing properties. I think it's garbage for me personally, right? But yeah, I need you to come to my market, dude. That's what I need in my life.
I also hate managing properties. That's why I partnered up with my property manager and said, hey, let me bring the business in. Let me help scale this business out. Let's help grow this business. You be the great property manager that you are, that you love being, and let me just work the business side of this. There'll be no shortage of leads. There'll be no shortage of anything else. That's my responsibility. And it's worked out really, really well in that case. We were actually partnered up with Pad Split. We were their go-to partner in Arizona. So we were taking on all the pad splits to begin with. We charged super cheap to manage the pad splits because we wanted to get the experience. And we saw a bigger picture there as well too. Most people that are doing pad splits on that side of it, it wasn't their first property that they're doing. It's like, hey, I'm a buy and hold investor. I'm going to try out this new exit strategy. So most of the people that were coming through Pad Split and that funnel, they had other properties. We were able to bring those properties on with us too. So even though we've moved away from our partnership with Pad Split now, we've chosen to just do co-living on our own. We still got to retain a lot of those same clients that came through the Pad Split channels.
Nice. So let's talk about your partnership with your property manager. How'd you meet him? How did this idea start, right? I mean, a lot of good ideas start that way, especially you and I are visionaries. A lot of good ones start when we meet like an integrator or someone who can do the operations, which is what he would be doing, right? How did you meet him? How did you have the conversation about partnering up? How did all of that happen?
So we've known each other, man, since I was like 19 years old. We were serving tables at Oregano's Pizza Bistro in Arizona, in Chandler. And we only worked together for like a day or two. Then I got fired. And then he eventually got fired too at some point. But we just remained super, super close friends. Clicked really well. Just really, really good friends. He got into property management 7 or 8 years ago. He wanted to just get into real estate and be an agent, and then fell directly into property management, fell in love with doing property management. My goal was like, hey, dude, I want to buy rentals, and then you can manage my rentals. And we had this whole plan of how that was going to work out. And then you fast forward, I get into real estate. And then he wasn't loving where he was at with property management. He's like, I think I want to do this thing and just do it on my own and start my own business. I was like, hold on, dude, let me do it with you. Let's do it together. This will be so much fun. And it has been. It's been super stressful, but it's been a ton of fun too. So it's been a really rewarding experience in that sense.
What have been your growing pains? Like, what are like your challenges right now? Like, I'm curious. Like, how does it what was have been your challenges with starting a property management company and growing it and all that?
For me, it's been regulation has been one of the biggest ones. There's so much red tape when it comes to property management. It's crazy to me. So many audits that can happen with the Department of Real Estate. It's such a regulated field. And you always have to make sure your numbers are adding up. You always have to make sure you have your ducks in a row because you can get audited at any point. Somebody can just stop by the office and be like, hey, show me your files. Hey, show me this, show me that. And in the world of real estate, and especially with creative finance, you don't just follow in that straight line that you're told to do. You're walking in the gray area a whole lot of the
Right.
time. So, and as a visionary, both of us, we're thinking outside of the box. Okay, I could do this, I could do that. And that's where it's been really nice to have Drew as a partner because he knows the rules of property management so well, where he's like, that's going to put us in jail. We can't do that. Yeah, no, we can't do that either. Nope, can't put those funds in that account either. So he's constantly kind of reeling me
And
back.
what are some things? What are some things that you almost got put or you could have been put in jail for? I'm like just curious, just in case. Just I figure like it'd be good, just in case someday I'm like, yeah, let me try that out, and I remember this podcast.
Okay, so we're acquiring a book of business right now, and I almost got to agree with the seller. I was like, hey, instead of me coming with a down payment, I'm going to let you keep all the security deposits because we have enough cash flow in the business coming in. I'll let you keep all the security deposits, which is like 6 figures worth of security deposits. And then we'll just take over the book of business and we'll start managing it. We'll start making way more cash flow. And then if somebody moves out and we have to turn that unit and we need to give them a security deposit back, we'll just write a check at that point in time. Not everybody's going to move out all at once. We can just do this, systematically. Like it makes total sense to me. Like that's just how it should work. And
Right.
you have to have all of them sitting in an account doing nothing, all the security deposits at any given time. Like if you get audited, they all have to be there available and you have to have it down to the cent accounted for.
That makes sense to me. I understand that one. That one is annoying though. I get what you mean. You could be doing stuff with the money, but
Yes.
I get it. Yeah,
There's
totally
a
makes
higher
sense.
and better use for all of this.
Wait, sorry, what?
I was saying there's definitely a highest and best use for all that money. So it pains
Yeah,
me. The investor side of my brain, it pains me because I'm like, why are there hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting here doing absolutely nothing? And they have to
nothing
be in
you can do.
specific accounts that are trust
Can't
accounts.
be can't be a savings account or anything like that,
Nope,
where
it
you're at
has
least
to be
getting
a very
interest.
there's like 3 banks that you can work through basically
That's crazy.
out here. It's crazy.
Huh. Okay. Well, anyways, that's weird. That sucks. But gotcha. Okay. Totally makes sense. And then okay, so regulations and stuff like that. What's your biggest challenge right now? Like what are you dealing with in your property management? You're like, man, this is like rough. How do I figure this out?
I would say it's employment has definitely been a pain point on our end. I know we were just talking about this actually just the other day was, hey, where do you get your VAs at? Because we're constantly trying to figure out what's going to make the most sense for us when it comes to hires. Property management is something that you do have to have critical thinking skills, but also you can't pay super high because it's property management and the margins aren't super high. So you're looking for these great high level individuals that can help continue to build the business, but the pay sometimes doesn't match that necessarily. So that's been a struggle because you're looking for the best possible talent, but at a lower rate. And that's a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, hiring is literally everything in a business. I feel like it's always the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is getting like the best people. Um, what are you trying to hire for, right? I mean, VAs, if it's virtual, VAs can do anything, right? You're gonna have trouble with your customer facing stuff more often than not, unless it's more basic stuff like customer support or tech support or something like that. But what are you trying to hire, or what are the positions you've been trying to hire for that have been a challenge?
Things that it's very difficult to have a VA do, right? So we have a VA for like accounting, like the back end stuff. But when we're talking
Yeah,
about like a maintenance coordinator, for example, it's hard to have a VA as a maintenance coordinator because when they get quoted $3,200 for a hot water heater, they don't know that it should be actually 1,100 bucks, right? And you can get a bunch of different quotes. So then they have to go and try to negotiate and figure out what's the best deal because we have to try to save our landlords money too. Otherwise, if we show up with a $3,200 bill, the landlords are like, dude, what the heck? I would have used my own company to go do that. So we have to be very strategic on What does the pricing look like? Are we trying to save them money? Did we exhaust all of our options? So that takes critical thinking skills that it's just challenging to get a VA up to that speed. And I've actually talked to a lot of other property manager owners who have tried that, and they struggled with the exact same thing. Next thing is client facing. Like you mentioned, that can be a little bit more challenging too. So we have our client facing side, we have our vendor facing side, and then we have runners that need to be out in the field checking on the properties, which obviously a VA can't do that either.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I mean that is definitely harder. I feel like that is an interesting problem. Wholesaling is different. There are different hiring problems with it, right? I mean, wholesaling, it's the cool thing is you get big chunks, so you can pay somebody a salary, for instance, for acquisitions managers. It's just more keeping them motivated, and I've started figuring out different things. Like I'm actually gonna I learned this. I saw this with you, and I've also seen it with Pace. Told me this a long time ago, where it's like you eventually need an actual office. Like you can't just do everything virtually, even if it feels like you can with wholesaling. There's something about how humans react, where they actually need to come into the office. I'm curious if it has to be every day. I'm gonna try a mixed use thing where it's like some days it's virtual, some days it's not. But it's interesting because it's just what happens when salespeople, if they get a big check, they kind of just screw off for a while until they need
Until the
money.
next quota comes up, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like,
That
well, all right.
bullshit moment where you're like, I need more money.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, so that's that, but it's interesting, man. Like, yeah, no, but it's cool to see. It's cool to see all of, like, the growth you've gone through, all the growth that your guys' businesses have gone through. It's I love seeing it. Um, so it sounds like property management, like, how far do you wanna grow it? It sounds like the fix and flipping is gonna kinda just stay where it is. The buy and holds, like if stuff comes up, you're gonna buy them and keep them as investments. But then like the property management sounds like most of your time because you really want to sell that off at some point. Where do you have to get that before you're like, okay, now I think I could sell off? Do you like know, do you research like where you need to be usually before someone would be willing to buy the property
Yes,
management company?
I know exactly where I need to be.
That-
Yes, and to kind of go back to what you were just saying too about being in the office, I do agree. I think that it's a wildly transformational thing is to have an actual office space. You've been to my office space before. It's small. It's nothing big. It's nothing impressive, but we get to have all the team members there. It's a place where our vendors can come and hang out with us. It's a place where all the employees can come and we get to hang out and collaborate. Kim, who does our maintenance coordination right now, she leaves by 2 o'clock. So we kind of have that same thing going there where it's like, hey, you don't have to be in the office all the time. It's just, let's make sure we're getting our stuff in. Let's be here in the mornings just so we can all regroup together and make sure we're all on the same exact page. So I do agree, having an office culture, huge. It's awesome. In terms of the property management business and where we want to take it, so our goal is to be at 500 units managed in our first 3 years. So when we hit the 3-year mark, our goal is to be at 500 units managed. That should put us at roughly $3 million a year in annual revenues coming in. And the really cool part with property management is as you are growing the property management side of things, and as your fees continue to grow on a monthly basis, you start to cap out on what your actual overhead is. Because there are a lot of things that are tedious tasks, administrative tasks that we can hire a VA for. And then we just have our solid core group of property managers where we have Drew, my partner, we have eventually 1 or 2 or 3 other property managers that make 50 to 60K a year, and they're able to manage the majority of everything else that happens. You don't necessarily need all the individualized roles because you can really start to systemize it. So you start to cap out at a certain point too. So a lot of that starts to become profit margins, which is great. Private equity in companies like Vacasa, MYND, the really, really big brand name property management companies out there that are very tech focused as well, they get really interested in companies when they start to hit the $2 million a year in revenue mark. And you're seeing on average about a 7x multiple on that revenue mark for selling off the business. So if we can get the business to $2 million a year in revenue, we can essentially sell the business for $14 million, which is really cool. So if we're still in that period of growth and scaling and all that kind of stuff when it comes to property management, why stop? Right? So do we hate our lives or can we keep going is the way that I kind of think about it. If we hate our lives, let's sell it off right now. If we don't, we're getting great cash flow coming in. Let's continue to scale it because once we hit $3 million in revenue or 4 million or 5 million, multiplying that by 7, I mean, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, no, I really like it too because it's just such a consistent business, like where it's like with those contracts, right? Those are the best types of businesses to start, right? I mean, with my CRM, the ones where it's like you're not bound by a contract, but even the ones where they're paying monthly, that's such a better business in some ways than the wholesaling, even if the wholesaling brings in way more money, right?
Hmm.
It's still just better because you just know how much you're going to get paid a month. Like
Yes.
generally, you're like pretty damn sure you're going to get however much you're bringing in, right?
That's how I
So
try to focus on everything in life too. When it comes to any form of us doing these businesses, right? It's that on the property management side. I like that. I've never been the person that chases big checks. Do I like getting a big check once in a while? Absolutely, we all do. But I do always look at what the long term is going to be. That's why I try to hold as many properties as possible. And everything I flip, I don't really live off of anything that I ever flip. I try to put those back towards the houses that I do own. Because my goal is, and most investors are going to hate me for saying this, is like literally let's get the houses paid off as quickly as possible. Most people are like, no, just depreciate it and let it pay down over 30 years. And I'm like, no, let's get it paid off as fast as possible. The amount of leverage you get when you have paid off assets, when something's vacant, you don't have a $2,000 payment, you're just not getting as much cash flow, and your cash flow is way higher. Like you have so much more opportunity if you just choose to take the money that you're flipping, the big chunks that you're making or wholesaling, just put it towards paying off the houses. You can expedite this free lifestyle that everybody wants to have when it comes to passive investments, because you're increasing your cash flow on a monthly basis almost if you're just continually paying it down.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. I mean, I definitely like I chase big checks. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I'm that guy. I love the 100K checks, but I totally get that it's a lot more when you have enough buy and holds where it's like where it's like that consistency, and also the property management where you have that consistency. It totally makes sense. I think it's way smarter, to be honest, than what I'm doing. But I do love big checks, so I'll just be that
But it's
guy.
good to have both, because I've put myself in both situations too, where I'm like, cool, I got these rental properties. And we went through a lot of pain over the past year or two because we held too many rental properties, and the plumbing would go bad at a house, then the electric would go bad at that other house. And then this tenant moved out and thrashed the house. And then like all these problems started happening. I'm like, man, I could really use some big checks right now to just really wipe this stuff out, because now I'm really feeling the pain of this.
Yeah,
So you need to have a good balance of both. I truly believe that.
I agree with you that you need both, because the wholesaling, a lot of it is to buy more houses. That's how it is in my head, right? I'm
Mhm.
not really paying down the houses any quicker, right? In my head, like if I'm getting sub twos at 3 or 4%, I'm going to keep those, right? Or I like that debt. But I get what you're saying. Then you get real cash flow, right? I call most of my rentals honestly fake cash flow, where it's like, okay, I'll get like $300 on one of my rentals, but then 1 or 2 years later, when the tenant moves out, it's like, oh, there's a $6,000 of work that needs to be done. Well, there goes most of or all of the cash flow. What the hell
Exactly.
was that? Like, what
It's
was the
it's
point
a
of all
tax
of that
strategy.
then?
It's just like, cool, I don't want to pay taxes on all the bigger checks that I'm making, so I'm gonna hold on to. That's how it has to, like, truly for buy and hold investors, like what people need to understand, because people think that they're just gonna buy and hold properties and they're gonna live free on the beach and do whatever they want, and that's not the case. It's gonna take you a long time to get to that point. So look at making money in both areas. The beauty of having the rentals right now while you're making the bigger checks is that you don't have to pay as much in taxes. So that's way more valuable than the $300 a month that's coming in on that property that you know you're not going to get to keep all that money too. So there's so much strategy that comes along with that. And there's a lot of strategy too around what you can do with different lines of credit when it comes to these properties. And we could dive into that as well if you want, but just why would we want to pay off these houses? Why does that make you more bankable? What kind of capital does that give you access to? And how can you really catapult things from there? There's so much strategy behind all this, and it just comes down to like, what do you want to do? Like, where are you the most passionate with what you're doing?
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree. I think you need both. I feel like this is something that I think people don't understand, or a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand. And tell me what you think of this. This is how I think
Mhm.
of it. Yes, being wealthy is better than being rich, but you also have to become rich in order to become wealthy, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like you need a lot of income in order to start buying things that start paying you every single month, right? And that's what you need to do. And once you do that, then you really are wealthy, and that's the end goal. But you do have to figure out how to get rich first. Like whether it's fix and flipping or wholesaling or even the property management company. I mean, I think the property management company, I would consider that more active income, even
Yeah.
if once you have it, it's a guaranteed thing, but it's like still more active income than like a buy and hold, right? But what you're doing is you're actively growing that so that you can eventually sell it, right? And that's, turning your riches into wealth. And I don't know, what do you think of that? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I do agree. I actually I made a video about this just the other day. Is I'm like, you have to have a strong financial foundation when you're doing this. Like, yeah, to build wealth, you just need to have this strong financial foundation. The money has to be coming from somewhere. And originally that came from my wife and I both having great W-2 jobs, and then fix and flips paired with my wife still having her W-2 job. Now we bring in property management. Property management doesn't bring in crazy amounts of money like you can with a flip or a wholesale, but it's consistent. And you do have the opportunity too, because you have to be licensed agents, which my partner is for property management. When these people want to sell, you still get to make commissions off of those sales. You're the first person at the table that's going to help them sell those properties and go locate the next property. So you still get pops of cash in that sense too when it comes to property management. But I do agree with you. I think that most people, I wish I actually would have put more of an emphasis, if I could go back in time and redo all of this, put more of an emphasis on how can I make more active income? Because I've always been in the mindset of long-term thinking of, even I used to trade stocks. It was the same thing. I was never a day trader. I was never into that stuff. I was like, let me dollar cost average, and maybe by the time I'm 60, I'll be able to retire. So I've always just
Right.
had this long-term way of thinking and never chased the quick cash by any means. I wish I had focused more on that though in the beginning of time, because that's a muscle that I'd love to be able to build up more, so I could figure out, okay, I got to make 50K in 2 weeks. Let me go make 50K in 2 weeks. And whereas right now I'm like, I have all these things in the fire, but I'm not getting those quick pops as much as I'd like, as you are.
Yeah, 100%. But I need more long-term stuff, right? So like it's always a balancing act, right?
Yes.
I'm really hoping there's this 12 unit that I'm looking at that if I got it, I'd be much, much happier. I'd be like, okay, nice. We have like probably most of my taxes will be taken care of for the next like year at least,
Yes.
probably, if I actually bought this 12 unit, because it's like very high price. It's in the Bay Area, right? But I need more of those, right? I don't own that many rentals. I own 3 right now, right? Mainly because I've been like, okay, this might be just trash. I think I need to do multifamily. I'm like, these single families are kind of trash in the sense of what we were talking about. It's like I feel like I'm just putting in more money than I'm actually getting out of these
Oh, yeah.
things almost every single time if they're single families, and I'm like, all right, this is just not worth it. But what do you feel like, when do you feel like someone should do that switch? That I feel like is the big question. I have my opinions on it and I'll give it afterwards, but like how much active income should you get yourself to before you even start worrying about necessarily passive income? Or maybe should you just be doing both at the exact same time? Like what's your opinions on that?
That's tough. It so comes down to your lifestyle. Like, it so comes down to your lifestyle, because you could easily be like, hey, I'm going to go house hack, and then I have no payments and I can live off of $3,000 a month, and then everything else I make on top of that for my active income, I'm just going to start dumping into passive income things. But that's not everybody's reality. That wasn't my reality. So for me, it would look like I need to be bringing in at least a consistent $25,000 a month on the active income side in order to start investing in the passive income side, just because that's going to make sure all my bills are paid. I don't have to adjust my lifestyle. I get to enjoy myself, and there's still money left over that I can start putting into passive assets. So for me, I would say 25,000. I think the average person, $10,000 to $15,000 a month consistently is what they should be making.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like in my head, like 150K a year around is like
Yeah.
where like 120 to 150K. That's why like I think most people shouldn't even be owning rentals. Like I don't think people get what they're getting themselves into most of the
Mm-mm.
time. Honestly, I don't understand how most normal people make money from rentals. Like I'm making some money thanks to sub two and stuff like that. I don't know how you're buying these conventionally and like making it worth it at all. I feel like you're just like literally only going to make money maybe after the appreciation in 30 years, maybe. Like I don't know what, I don't know. Anyways, like it was funny. I was talking to like my friend who works on Wall Street. He was thinking of buying like a rental or something. And he's like, this doesn't seem worth it at all. I'm like, yeah, man, it's not really. Not the way you're buying it. Like you could, you could make 8 to 10% just S&P 500ing it. You're going to like get that at exactly year 30 when you sell this thing, probably.
Mhm.
While like with the stock market, at least you're slowly seeing it go up as time goes on, right? So anywho, I thought that was it's just
I,
something
I
I've been
will say I agree with you, and I also disagree to some extent as well. Is I think that it also comes down to the strategy that you're trying to get through, and I think a lot of people think the BRRRR strategy is dead right now, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is because I've just done 3 of them recently. So I'm still doing the BRRRR strategy. It's about understanding, and I think that's where the power of fix and flipping comes in. Is how do I truly maximize the value of this property? And you have to be doing fix and flipping to understand how to truly maximize the value of a property. Like I've had houses where I've added 500 square feet to them, and it took no time and no effort because it was already existing there, and it just wasn't on the county assessor, and it just hadn't gone through the state, and immediately way more value. So there's a lot of strategy behind that as well, and it comes down to how you're acquiring the properties too. Not everything should be a DSCR loan. I'm now moving all of my properties over to lines of credit. So that way I no longer have mortgages on them. I have just a line of credit on them. So it gives me way more access to capital. When I'm making payments or extra payments to those properties, I immediately have access to that capital again. So I can really expedite all of this stuff. And I'm compounding the pay down on those properties as well. So I'm getting closer to that cash flow. I have 15 properties. It's not like I'm this crazy, huge buy and holder, but 15 properties in today's market in Arizona, with how I have them set up and the tenants that I have in place in those, when I get all those paid down in the next 3 years is my goal. That'll be $50,000 a month just in those rental properties alone. And I'll have access to about $6 million of lines of credit just through those properties alone. You're kind of unstoppable at that point in time on what you can go and do in the real estate space.
So wait, let's talk a little bit about that because I haven't heard that much about that strategy. What do
Mm-hmm.
you mean by lines of credit? Are we talking about HELOCs? Are we talking about other lines of credit? And like, what are you doing and why do you like them more than like a normal loan or a DSCR loan?
Yeah, so great question. I think this is like the greatest strategy of all time. And I don't know why nobody talks about this strategy. And I just like was sitting in bed one night, like 5 months ago, and I was like, if you had just like a regular line of credit on a house instead of a mortgage where it's amortized, it's just the simple interest. Every month that you make a bigger payment to it, you're bringing your interest payment down. So you technically would pay that off faster, wouldn't you? And I just kind of started reverse engineering it, and started looking into a lot of these companies. And then Ingrid happened to hear about a company when we were talking about it. She's like, dude, call this company. So there's this thing called first lien HELOCs. And you can go through, and when I go buy a property with hard money, I can go then and refinance it into a first lien HELOC, and they'll go up to 80% LTV, which is higher than most DSCR loans, and at an 8% interest rate, which is high right now. They range from 6 to 8% for this company that I am doing this with right now. So my payment on a monthly basis ends up being lower than what the DSCR loans are. It's technically interest only, but I'm just putting the whole rent payment towards that every single month, because when $1,000 gets paid down on that HELOC, that's $1,000 less of interest I'm paying every single month. So it's continually then I'm paying more principal the next month. And you have this teetering effect where as you're paying down the loan, the interest is also going down on what you're paying. So you're paying more principal every single month too. So you're just like expediting the spend down essentially, and you're treating it like a bank account. So when I do a fix and flip, I can borrow from those accounts for all my fix and flips, use it for all of my down payments, use it for all of my working capital. When I make my $50,000 on the fix and flip, I'm just going to go dump it straight back into the HELOC account because it's just less interest I have to pay now, and I have access to that capital whenever I want.
I like it a lot. Some questions I got for you. So, the main thing that would like I totally get it. I mean, you basically are treating it like an amortized loan if you're paying some principal every single month, right? I mean, that's what it
Yeah.
basically is, except is it actually faster than an amortized loan because of the way that you're doing it? Like I'm kind of curious just math wise because obviously with an amortized loan you're mainly paying interest at the beginning and then eventually get to the principal, but like it sounds like basically if you do it your way you're paying as much. I don't know, you're paying like a lot of the principal up front maybe. I don't know, I'm curious, like have you done it and seen that stuff?
Yeah, so let's look at it in this context too. So if I have a payment on my HELOC for $1,000, we'll use all the basic numbers for easy math purposes. I have a payment to my HELOC for $1,000 a month, and then I'm bringing in $2,000 a month for rental income net. Let's just say, so I'm making double what my HELOC payment is on a monthly basis. So I'm going to take that full $2,000 and put it straight towards the HELOC. So that means I have paid down the principal by another $1,000 on the HELOC. Well, the interest for that upcoming month now is only based off of the new balance. So let's say the original balance was $100,000. Now the new balance is $99,000. So the interest payment is going to be less because it's calculating less on what the whole principal amount is. So now my payment the following month is going to be $1,015, right? And then the next month, my payment to the principal is going to be $1,025. And then the next month, it's going to be $1,037. And it just keeps going up and up and up. So every single month, the principal pay down is going up.
I love it. I love it so much. My other devil's advocate objection is the issue that I always had with HELOCs is you're dealing with a variable interest rate, right? Like it's not like a fixed interest rate, I'm assuming. So the funny thing is 8% is already pretty high. It would be kind of hard for you to go too much higher than that, or like it'd be pretty rare, right? Are you worried about that at all? Or are you kind of like, hey, interest rates are really high. If I can make it work at 8%, like it's very unlikely it's going to go to like 12%. How do you feel about that? Or am I wrong? Is it fixed rate or how does it work?
There's some companies that will offer it as a fixed rate, but for me, mine's variable rates. And I'm constantly talking to them, what's the highest you've ever seen it really get to? And 8's kind of been the cap. I think it's pushed to 9 once before, but at the end of the day, I run the numbers at like 12%, 11, 12%. And it still makes sense at those numbers. And I'm like, if things would have to get really crazy for it to get that high. So it still makes sense to me. And if that's the case, I'm just not going to be using that line of credit quite as much in that point in time. So I'm just actively treating it like a bank account. As long as I can take that money and make more money with it, that works for me in that case.
I like it. So then how do you qualify for it? So you said 20%. Is it based on the asset? Is it like DSCR or is it based on you? Like, how's it work?
It depends what company you're going to go to on it. Some are going to do them just based off of you. Some are going to do them based off the asset. That might depend on the interest rate that you're actually going to get to. We just did one that is through us because it was going to be a lesser of an interest rate. So we had Angel qualify for it because she still has her W-2 job. But it's also just comes down to being bankable to a certain extent. With you owning a business, and like, keep in mind, our taxes still show that we made negative $400,000 last year because we wrote everything off. So
Right.
It still looks like we're completely irresponsible financially, and they just have to reverse engineer that whole thing. And you have to be able to explain to them. Most banks, as long as you're able to work with the underwriting team and show them, hey, actually, yes, see how much this property is going to bring in, see how much I'm actually bringing in. They're able to reverse engineer a lot of that stuff if you're working with a good bank.
I like it. So let's talk about how to find a good bank and how to make a good banking relationship, right? I don't feel like we talk about this ever in the real estate investing world, but I saw a
No.
reel of yours that I thought was really good. That was talking like, hey, you should actually like make relationships with banks. If you like have a relationship with a bank, like a real bank, you're going to be able to get all the money you would ever need, right? For any of your projects. Talk about how you make those relationships, how you do that, and where should somebody start if they want to like start making a relationship with a bank?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to go about it. First and foremost, always call all of your local credit unions and see what they have to offer, and see what kind of incentives, if there's different tiers for them. So you can get really strategic with this if you really want to. It depends how much work you want to put into it, though. I do know people that put a ton of work into this and almost treat it like a full-time job, is just their banking relationships. Because I'll give you an example here. We bank with Chase for just our regular typical business accounts for our operating expenses, all that kind of stuff. And we don't typically get most of our loans from Chase, but Chase gives us a lot of awesome benefits because we always have at least 6 figures at Chase. So it keeps us as a private client. We get access to different lines of credit. We get access to a bunch of stuff that most people don't get to because we're the highest tier of that bank. And that's how a lot of banks operate too. If you have at any point in time 6 figures at the bank with this credit union or with Wells Fargo or Chase or whoever it may be, we're going to put you at the highest tier so you get the most premium rates. We can get you approved for things that most people wouldn't be able to get approved for. And you'd get this private client experience where now you have a banking business partner essentially that works at the branches or works within that company where they're going up to bat for you. They're making sure that they're getting the message across of what you're looking for, and they can push things through that otherwise wouldn't be able to. So what some people will do is they'll actually take like 100, 150K And at the beginning of a month, they'll be like, okay, today I'm transferring this to Chase. Next day, it's going to go over to Fidelity. After Fidelity, it's going to go to Wells Fargo. Then and they'll just literally drop the money in these different accounts, just move it around. So that way they're the top tier at every single bank.
Okay. That's the main thing, is just like how much money you deposit into the bank. Like that's just the main thing. And then do you like these types of loans? Because what are you mainly using to finance your properties? Is it mainly these HELOCs or these like first lien HELOCs? It sounds like
For like
they're what?
For like the acquisition or
Anything, rehab, acquisitions, like whatever you need.
yeah, so I am buying them with hard money still. So I'm still doing it as just normal. It's just for the refinance. I'm not doing a DSCR. The DSCR,
Gotcha.
I don't like mortgages in the sense of like you're paying towards something every month that you get no access to anything that you're paying towards. I'm like, if I'm going to be making these payments, I wish I could at least just grab it and
How
use the
hard is
money.
that application in comparison to like a normal mortgage? Because normal mortgages can be the refinance, it can be a long process, I've heard, and can be like really annoying sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
how hard is it to get these first lien HELOCs?
Again, it's going to come down to the company that you work with on that. I've worked with some that take for freaking ever, and it's awful. And it's like doing a traditional mortgage, and they want every single last piece of information of anything you've ever done in your life to understand if you're qualified or not. There's other people that are going to be a lot looser on their terms. The biggest thing is if you find a bank that's going to give you great terms, that is going to be willing to work with you, that's going to be willing to look at your P&Ls or balance sheets if you're a real estate investor like myself, where it looks like you lose money. It's great to just continue on with that relationship, even if it's a little bit more laborious on the front end, where it's just this difficult thing, because once you get through the gate, like the gate's open now, like you made it in. So now they know who you are. They can continually just work with you so you can start repeating the process. If that takes a little bit more effort on the front end and it took you a full month to get your loan approved, so be it. Because at the end of the day, you have the reward of, okay, cool, now I have this really cool loan product that is really going to skyrocket everything else. Because now that you have a HELOC on that property, let's say I pay off that house and it takes me a year, that one house that I'm putting a HELOC on, it takes me a year because I do fix and flips. I throw all my fix and flips on there and cool, it's a free and clear house. Now I have access to 80% loan to value. That's $400,000 for a $500,000 house. I can go buy another house for $400,000 all cash with that HELOC. And then I can go get a new HELOC out on the next house that I just purchased because there's no loan on that. And then I can go get a HELOC on the next one and on the next one. So it kind of just starts to compound itself, and it's a ripple effect that never really stops.
So, sorry, maybe I missed that. Did you say because they're HELOCs, it's as though you don't have any loans on, like it isn't showing up on your credit because it's based on the house? Is that basically what I heard, right? Like in the sense like you eventually will get cut off from having too many mortgages. You probably won't get cut off from too many HELOCs.
Correct. Yeah. So the bank loves a free and clear asset, right? So the banks will always give you money if you have a free and clear house and they get to be first position. Like that is like, that's prime lending right there. Like they don't hardly have to qualify you for anything, if at all. So if I have one house, house A, and I pay that house off and I have a HELOC on it, the first lien HELOC, and again, it's $500,000 house, 80% LTV. That's $400,000. I can take that line of credit, that $400,000, and go purchase the next house with it. That's worth, let's say it's the same exact deal, $500,000 house that I'm buying undervalued for $400,000. And it's rent ready to go. I don't think that's too hard to find those types of deals, especially in today's market. So if I'm taking my HELOC on house A to go buy house B, and I close on house B, I never got debt out on house B. House A has the debt. So house B is technically free and clear. So I can go back to the bank and say, guys, I got this other free and clear house. Can you give me a line?
Do you feel like that more than like when you're just purchasing the house? That's like so interesting to me because it's basically the same thing. Like why would they like it more when you have a free and clear house and get a HELOC on it than if you go purchase the house and then have to pre-qualify and then use them to purchase the house? They like the HELOC route more?
You already own it. So you don't have to qualify to purchase it. You're just refinancing or getting a line of credit, which doesn't mean that you have to be using that line of credit at that time. Like when you get a mortgage, you're taking all the money out right there. It's the debt that's in place. Can that debt be serviced? Here, it's backed by the asset. You're not taking any of that money out essentially right from the start because it's a line of credit. You use it as you need it. So you're continually building up these lines of credit.
Gotcha. So it's almost like I get it. I see the point too. And also what's cool about that is like, if you don't want to purchase a new house and you want to use all the money for something else, you can, right? And that's
So
pretty
you
awesome
live
too.
out of the HELOC now. So it's like, oh shit, man, I had this big expense come up. Cool, just slap it on the HELOC because the house is going to continue to pay it down. Like I don't have to come out of pocket for that anymore. And now I'm buying everything with debt. It's never buying anything with my own earned income.
I like it. I like it a lot. And then all of your offers are cash offers.
Every single offer is a cash offer. So Zach keeps out here locally. This is what
Yeah.
he does, and this is how he's able to scale so fast because he has like 80 of these things on his houses, to where he's just like, oh yeah, you need 10 million bucks. Let me stroke a check for 10 million bucks because I got the freaking HELOCs available to me and I can use it. You can literally go to an ATM and pull out cash with a HELOC. Like it's just money essentially that you can use. Yeah, there's an interest rate that comes with it, but as long as you're using it to make more than what it's costing you, you're good, and you're going to be in a
Interesting.
really strong position.
I like it a lot, man. Well, we're getting to the end of the podcast. That was fascinating. That was a good lesson for me and like very interesting about how like I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, how could I do that? I've been buying everything sub 2 and seller financing, so I can't really do that right now. But
I
when
got one more for you though, real quickly on
okay,
the creative deals before we just jump off, because this is a game changer too, and this is why I think the most valuable deal you can ever do is a seller finance deal with a banking relationship. So when you do a seller finance deal, straight seller finance, try to always add in there a substitution of collateral clause, or just say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm going to pay you 800 bucks a month, or I'll pay you $1,000 a month, or 1,500 bucks a month if you allow my LLC to pay you directly instead. So instead of me backing this by the asset, I'm going to back it by an LLC instead. And the reason why you do that is because now you have this seller financed house and you don't have a note secured by the deed of trust, which is what a seller finance note typically is. It's secured to the house. You have it secured to your LLC. So now the house is free and clear from what the bank is going to look at. It looks to be free and clear. So you can go get that line of credit right there from the start. So
wow. Yeah.
one seller finance deal can literally fund you an infinite amount of deals for the rest of your life. You never have to raise private money. You never have to do anything ever again.
How would you talk to a seller where they'd be willing to do that, right? Because that's much less secure for them than a normal seller financing deal. Because now they're basing it off your business, right?
They are basing it off the business, but you have to be able to build your own credibility. But the way that I do it is I go, hey, Mr. Seller, I can pay you $800 a month, backing this by the house, and I try to understand what their needs are. They need 1,500 bucks a month. The most I can pay you is 800 bucks a month. Or if you allow my business to just pay you directly instead, I'll pay you 2,000 bucks a month. Which one would you be open-minded to? And they're like, I want 2,000 bucks a month. And I'm like, cool. It's still at 0% interest. I still don't talk about the terms of it. It's still a 30-year note. Like I don't break that down. I just only talk about how much money it is. And I let them pick, you want $800 or $2,000? They're like $2,000. I'm like, right on, dude. Sign right here.
Super interesting, my man. You've got my mind turning, which I really like a lot. I'm gonna text you after this. I want to know your HELOC company. I feel like that'd be cool to like meet that if that's possible. So my man, real quick, what are your socials? How can people reach out to you? I know there's gonna be a lot of people with the HELOC questions. Luke is a common viewer of my stuff, and has his mind blown right now. Where can people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm the most responsive on Instagram. Like that's where you want to find me. It's at Stephen Hunt, StevenHunt, Stephen Hunt. And then you can also catch me on YouTube, which is Stephen_Hunt, at Stephen_Hunt, which is the one that Jonah has linked up there. I am starting to put more YouTube content out there. I will start talking about this stuff more too, because I do think there's a huge disconnect. I think creative finance.
You should get an affiliate link from the HELOC company.
I've tried this already, and they will not.
Oh, that's super whack. Well, anyways, I'm interested in knowing them. Real quick, Luke wants to know, can you do that in every state?
You sure can.
Hell yeah. So Luke's already following you guys. Please follow Steven. He's an amazing guy. He's dropping some really cool content. He's like a really good friend of mine. I really like him. I think he's going to be crushing all sorts of real estate stuff that's going to be beyond this world. His property management too. You guys should hit him up for. He's got a lot of good stuff. Follow him on Instagram. Subscribe to him on YouTube. All that good stuff. Go there. Go do that now. Steven, my man, you've been amazing. I love seeing the growth. I love seeing the grind. And yeah, man, like what, do you have any last words before I end this thing?
Yeah. Go get lines of credit, yo. Go get lines of credit. That is a move. creative finance is great. Banking relationships are great. One's not better than the other. Like, these are all tools in your tool belt. Know how to leverage all these things, and you will skyrocket. You'll far surpass everybody else.
I love it. I love it so much. Steven, you're a beast. Guys, next week, Skorch the Fears. There's a new podcast I'm going to be creating very soon. I'm going to be announcing it probably next week, hopefully next week. But next week will be Skorch the Fears. I forgot who's coming on, but it'll be episode 116. Steven, you're amazing. Everybody reach out to him. This has been Skorch the Fears, episode 115. Let's freaking go.